Hello and welcome back to Train Drivers Rules. It's episode 2 and today we're making a start on personal track safety. Welcome to week 2 of many of Train Drivers Rules, teaching you many of the rules and procedures you need to learn in order to become a qualified train driver. I'm Richard, I'm a freight train driver and former passenger train driver based in the southeast of England. Just before we jump into the video, please take a few moments to check the mandatory declaration. This video is meant for entertainment and education purposes only. The video should be used as an oversight, but does in no way, shape or form equip you with all the skills you need to drive a train safely or access the railway line. Do not attempt to go on or near the railway line unless you hold the correct competencies. You are placing yourself and others at risk, up to and including risk of death. I have tried to make the videos as accurate as possible, but rules and regulations do change often, and for every rule on the railway there is always an exception. Always follow instructions as laid down in the latest versions of the rulebook and your company's operating publications. All of the information contained in this video is already easily available in the public domain, and I may have omitted information where necessary to protect the safety and security of the railways. The views expressed within this video are solely my own and may not reflect those of any companies I may be employed by or associated with. So let's jump straight into this week's video, and we're talking PTS or personal track safety. Personal track safety is a competency that all railway staff who are required to access the railway line as part of their normal duties have to hold. Not all railway staff are required to access the line in order to complete their duties, so therefore not all staff hold this competency. PTS is designed to keep you as safe as possible when you're on the track, helping you to identify potential hazards and teaching you what to do in emergency situations. I'm going to be talking about PTS as it applies to train drivers in this video, because this is a Train Drivers Rules video, and additional restrictions and rules may apply to track workers and other members of staff who need to access the railway line, but this video is aimed mainly at members of train crew. So as I mentioned in the declaration, and I want to make this perfectly clear, this video is no substitute for going on a professional accredited personal track safety course, and in no way equips you with all the skills you need to go on the track. Stay off the track unless you hold the correct competencies. It's not a safe place to be. Point of interest and point of note as well that heritage PTSs are not normally valid on Network Rail on mainline railways, and most mainline PTSs are not accepted on heritage railways. So let's start at the very beginning before we even go onto the track. We need to make sure we're fully prepared with the correct PPE or personal protective equipment to give it its full name. So for members of train crew that this video is applying to, the basic level of PPE will apply. So you need to make sure you've got safety boots on, steel toe cap boots, safety boots, and you need to make sure you've got an orange high-vis vest on. In some cases, depending on the job role that you're doing, you may need full PPE, which would be completely tangoed up, orange trousers, orange safety vest or top, hard hat, gloves, safety boots, goggles, the complete and absolute works. For train drivers and train crew, the minimum level of PPE applies, which is going to be safety boots and orange vest. There are certain locations you may visit, particularly as a freight driver, some customer sites that will mandate more PPE, that will mandate that you need to wear full PPE, but these are going to be outlined in your company's operating instructions. As well as your full PPE, you're going to need to make sure you hold a personal track safety competency, or you're accompanied by someone who does, that is allowed to accompany people onto the track. You're also going to need to make sure you're in full compliance with the drugs and alcohol policy, as we spoke about in the previous video. And you're going to need to make sure that you've got a valid reason to go onto the track. Holding a PTS doesn't give you the right to access the track whenever you feel like it. You have to have a valid reason for being there. Being trackside, as I'm sure you can imagine, isn't the most hospitable of environments. It can be quite a nasty place to be, if I'm being perfectly honest. And as part of your PTS, you need to be aware of many of the hazards that you're going to face when you're trackside. Firstly, and I guess the most obvious one of those, is going to be approaching trains. You're going to need to know what direction they're likely to approach from and what speed they're going to be approaching as well. Conductor rail equipment or overhead lines, 25,000 volt overhead or 750 volt DC. You're going to need to be aware what systems in operation, if any, and we're going to talk about both of those in another video. High embankments or deep cuttings. Is there the potential to fall down an embankment and break your leg? Slips, trips and falls, of course. The railway is very cluttered, signalling cables, bits of old scrap, bushes and overgrowth everywhere, to mention but a few of the hazards in that department. Lineside structures, tunnels, bridges, station platforms. Could you move out the way in time if a train approached you? What signal box controls this area? Who do I need to call in an emergency? These are just a few of the examples of some of the potential hazards you're going to face. Then you've got things such as environmental hazards. Fog and falling snow can maybe make it difficult to see approaching trains. Strong wind can make it difficult to hear approaching trains. You know, if conditions are slippery, windy, that's going to add to your slips, trips and falls hazards. There's so much to be aware of when you're out there. So we are going to have a look in a little bit more detail at those hazards and risks as we go through the PTS course. But before we do that, it's time for some terminology. The railway is famous for its terminology and acronyms and things like that. And there's a few terms that you are going to need to learn and you're going to need to be comfortable using with regards to PTS.
So here we have, in its simplest form, railway track, sometimes referred to as the line or the track. There are three main components to the track that we are concerned with. Firstly, we have the railhead, or running rail. That's the metal part that the wheel of the train makes contact with. Secondly, we have the sleepers. These are either concrete or wooden and connect the running rails, ensuring the correct spacing between the two rails. Thirdly, we have the ballast. That's all the stony stuff that holds the railway in place and helps with drainage. Some locations may have cast concrete bases where the running rails are affixed directly to a concrete slab and therefore sleepers and ballast are not required.
So that's your basic components. We've got the track, the sleepers and the ballast. And I apologise if I'm teaching anyone to suck eggs here. I'm aiming this course at someone who's never even seen a train before in their lives almost. Moving on, we need to now look at what the different areas of the track are called.
In this picture we can see a simple single railway line. The area between the running rails where the train passes over is known as the forefoot. It's not actually 4 foot, it's 4 foot 8.5 inches, but known as the forefoot. Either side of the forefoot we have the area known as the cess. The cess is the space extending from the running rail all the way to the railway boundary fence. Here we can see a pair of railway tracks. The forefoot and the cess have been highlighted and are the same as our single line example. This leaves a new space between the two pairs of running rails. This is known as the 6 foot. Again, just a term and not an exact measurement. Doubling up again, here we have a 4-line railway. I will fill in the 4 foots, 6 foots and cess. The space left between the two pairs of running rails is known as the 10 foot. And as before, this is a term and not an exact measurement.
Whilst these terms are universally used, they may not fit every situation, such as where there are more than 4 lines. In these areas, it's important to be more specific and reach a clear understanding when communicating locations. Terms such as the 6 foot between lines D and E may be a more appropriate and effective way at describing a location. Always ensure you reach a clear understanding. Go back and rewatch the animation if you need to, guys. It's really important that you get your head around this terminology. It's not just important for PTS, it's going to be important throughout your entire railway career to be able to describe the locations of things. And I can almost guarantee that the questions on terminology will show up in your PTS exam. Unfortunately though, we're not quite done. There are a couple more terms that you need to know in order to describe the areas of the line.
We are going to take our basic one-track diagram again. These principles apply regardless of how many tracks are present. As you already know, the area from the running rail to the railway boundary fence is known as the cess, but this can be further broken down. If you are within 10 foot or 3 metres of a running rail, you are what is known as on or near the line. If you are within the railway boundary fence, but however are further than 3 metres or 10 foot from a running line, you are in the area known as lineside. If you are outside of a boundary fence, neither term applies, regardless of the distance the boundary fence is from the running rail. If you are stood on a station platform, you are not classed as on or near the line or lineside. The exception being if you are carrying out maintenance or other technical work. If you are carrying out such work, then you are deemed to be on or near the line if you are within 1.25 metres or 6 foot of a platform edge.
A fair bit to take in there, guys, and I think probably enough for one video. I'm not going to do a recap, but what I am going to do is put a blank diagram on the screen for you now. You can take a screenshot of that or whatever you want to do, fill out the blanks, and then go back through the video to see how you got on. Next week, we are, I'm afraid to say, going to be continuing with PTS. There's actually 4 PTS videos. Yeah, sorry about that. And next week we're going to be looking at how to walk safely on the track and some of the things we might encounter while we're out there approaching trains, how to acknowledge them, and bits and bobs like that. Don't forget to like and subscribe and click that notification bell so you'll be notified when that video drops. And remember, channel members do get early access to all the videos. In the meantime, if you want to talk to other members of railway staff or railway enthusiasts alike, you can join our Discord server. I'll pop a link down in the description below. You can also follow me on my social media channels, which are also on the screen for you right now. And I shall see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.